Hello BookTube. Today I'm going to be doing the Sandman Book Tag. This tag was created by BookTube Goddess, and I saw it on Fiber Artsy's channel, and I will leave links to both original videos in the show notes down below. The Sandman Book Tag is inspired by the recent Netflix adaptation of the Sandman comic book series by Neil Gaiman, which is a series of comics or comic book series that features the character of Morpheus, Dream. In this setting, there are seven godlike conceptual beings called the Endless, of which Dream is one of them. He is joined by Destiny, Death, Destruction, Desire, Despair, and Delirium. And the seven prompts of this tag draw inspiration from the seven Endless. Although, since Destruction is absent from this first season, he is going under the title of Prodigal. And the prompt refers to prodigal characters rather than Destruction's function. I just recently finished out the series. I'd watched the first 10 episodes of the season, which pretty much is the first season, a few weeks ago and really loved it. It was an absolute joy to watch. And then I watched Wednesday the special episode, which is basically two shorter episodes combined together, and I didn't care for it that much. But anyway, let's get on to the prompts. Prompt number 1, Destiny. What book or character do you think reflects your own life? This prompt gave me some trouble because no book or character really completely reflects one's own life. And so I wasn't entirely sure how I was going to approach my answer to this prompt, but I decided to go in a way to reflect some aspects of my life. And so I went with Hurricane Season by Fernanda Melchor, translated by Sophie Hughes. For Hurricane Season is about the murder of a transgender witch in a small Mexican village, and it's told by or narrated by a number of people who are related to the crime in one way or another. There's this one character, one of the murderers, who has relations to a number of the narrators in the book, and one is also the other murderer. But anyway, so how Hurricane Season reflects my life is that the main character's grandmother is an invalid, and the oldest of the grandmother's granddaughters takes care of her. And as I was reading this book, that relationship, that although far, 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 far more toxic in the book, and that it kind of reflects me taking care of my mother, who has been disabled for about going on 6 years now. So, yeah. Prompt number 2, Death. What book has presented death or dying in a way that was unexpected? This prompt also gave me some trouble because I just couldn't really wrap my head around a good answer, and I'm not entirely happy with the answer that I came up with. but it does present death in an interesting way, I would think, or at least it shonenizes it. And I went with Bleach by Tite Kubo. This is a manga series that was one of the big three shonen manga series of the early 2000s and certainly into the mid 2010s. Bleach is the story of Ichigo Kurosaki, who can see ghosts. One day he encounters a soul reaper named Rukia, who is tracking a hollow, a rogue ghost, who prey on the living. Rukia is injured and has to transfer some of her power to Ichigo. Ichigo ends up taking all of it and in effect becomes a living soul reaper who then goes on adventures as shonen heroes do. I haven't read all of Bleach. I've read good chunks of it and I really enjoy it. It is a fast-paced, action-packed series. Although perhaps it went on a bit too long. But anyway, so I guess in a way, Bleach does present a death in an unexpected way. Prompt number 3, dream. What book is like a dream or a nightmare? For this, I went with The Neverending Story by Michael Ende. This book is translated by Ralph Manheim. The Neverending Story is about a young boy named Bastian who comes across a magical book, and he reads the book while skipping school, although he is actually still in the school when he's reading it. And he reads an epic fantasy story, The Neverending Story, which gradually pulls him into the narrative as he is instrumental to saving this world, which is under threat of being erased. And Fantastica, the world that this story takes place in, not the real world that Bastian's from, but the world in the story, is very, very dreamlike and very interesting. So I would go with that. Prompt number 4, Prodigal. What is your favorite book about a prodigal character? For this, I'm going with another manga series, and that is Fullmetal Alchemist by Hiromu Arakawa. This Fullmetal Alchemist is the story of the Elric brothers, Edward and Alphonse. They are prodigy alchemists who attempt human transmutation, an alchemical transmutation that seeks to resurrect their deceased mother. It fails. The brothers are grievously mutilated as a result. Edward loses a leg. Alphonse loses his body. To save Alphonse's life, Edward sacrifices his arm to transcribe Alphonse's soul onto a suit of armor. And a year later, with automel prosthetics, Edward becomes a state alchemist for the military of Amestris, and he and Alphonse begin to travel across their country searching for the Philosopher's Stone, an alchemical artifact reputed to be able to bypass the law of equivalent exchange. As the brothers travel, they discover the truth of the Philosopher's Stone, as well as uncover a conspiracy that runs to the very foundations of Amestris, and which sees the brothers as important human sacrifices for their endgame. Edward and Alphonse are the definition of prodigals. They are nomadic. They never stay in one place for too long. Their homecomings are few and far between and are always fraught with tension. They are estranged from their father, more so Edward than Alphonse. So yeah, this is Fullmetal Alchemist is by far my favorite series about prodigals. Prompt number 5, Desire. What is the sexiest book you've ever read? For this, I'm going to go with The Swimming Pool Library by Allan Hollinghurst. This is the novel of a wealthy young gay man who really has nothing better to do with his time than exercise and have sex. And one day he meets an elderly nobleman who also happens to be gay while both are cruising, and the elderly noble has a heart attack, and the protagonist saves him, and later becomes acquainted with him and is eventually asked to write the biography of this man, all the while juggling a number of love affairs and a friendship that also has some fair amount of tension to it. The Swimming Pool Library is an incredibly sexy work, I would think, and one where the sexiness is actually fairly well done. Prompt number 6. What is the most depressing book you've ever read? This prompt also gave me some trouble. I don't really like reading depressing fiction. And so I didn't know quite where to go because usually I will bail. But then I thought, well, I could just throw in some grimdark fantasy here because grimdark fantasy is, by definition, incredibly depressing. So I went with the most depressing one I could find, or that I could remember, and that is The Mirror Empire by Kameron Hurley. This is book 1 of the Worldbreaker saga. This is basically a setting in which there are 2 or 3 parallel realities that begin to bleed, and each one is incredibly depressing, incredibly grim and dark, and just utterly, the definition of grim dark. It's been a while since I've read it, so I don't quite remember the plot. I think it's one young woman is sent from one world to another, although she doesn't know it. And she's taken in by an order of, I don't think they're quite mages or wizards, but I think they're like scholars who end up getting involved in like an invasion from another world where their people's far more militaristic and imperialistic. And then there's on the other side of the world another invasion going on, and again a very grim world. So just And finally, Delirium. What is the most absurd or nonsensical book you've ever read? For this, I think I'm going to go with a canonical work, and that is Alice in Wonderland, and also Through the Looking Glass by Lewis Carroll. I don't think I need to really explain the Alice books all that much. It's basically Alice either has a dream or she actually goes to really weird worlds that are governed by a strange logic. And they're basically adventure stories. Anyway, that was the Sandman Book Tag. If you would like to do this tag, consider yourselves tagged, and I will see you later this evening with a weekly read. So until then, BookTube, thank you, have a great afternoon, and stay safe.